And good morning, everyone. We are live on the Falcons Podcast. My name is Scott Kennedy. I will be your host, along with my co-host over on this side, Nick Kendell. I am in Atlanta. He is in Seattle, so we're coast to coast with your football coverage. Nick, it was a glorious weekend, at least here in the South in Atlanta, and a great weekend for some prospects at the NFL Combine. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing pretty well. Can't complain. Got to hang out with some friends this weekend. Had a dinner one night and brunch another. So, we're living it up, that millennial style, right? It's avocado toast and all that. Some good coffee. But no, doing well. Excited to talk about the combine results and all the juicy stuff that comes from that. And now we're going to start to get some real moves as well. So everything just keeps ratcheting up through the end of April. So excited for that.
Yeah, between the NFL Combine and now free agency next week, it's going to be really busy. The pro days for some of the guys that didn't run or want to do some of the other things. This is one of my favorite times of the year, honestly. With football, for what we do, this is one of my favorite times of the year. Some of the things we want to get into this morning on the Falcons podcast is one, the options at number 8 are starting to look very good. There's, the discussion was, and I always kind of say, pump the brakes a little bit. Last year we were talking about it wasn't a very good draft, and I was like, baloney. This was a very good draft, very deep draft through 150. Let's see. Let's pump the brakes a little bit and see how some of these guys perform and how they might translate to the next level. So we'll talk about some of the options at 8, some of the guys that really help their stock. 2. We'll talk some trade rumors. There's been some buzz going around about the Bears moving out of 1. That's been going on for a while, but the Falcons possibly being one of those teams talking about trading up to number 1. And then the Lamar Jackson stuff that just won't go away. And there was some news that might make it sound like it makes a little more sense for the Atlanta Falcons, where they might not have to give up as much to make a move for someone like Lamar Jackson. Now, he's still going to cost big money, but money's money. You can generate more revenue. It's hard to give up 3 draft picks. Let's say good morning to some folks in the chat real quick, because this thing's starting to open up and reach its way out into the Twitter sphere and YouTube sphere and Facebook sphere. Michael Ranquillo coming in, always in. First off this morning, thank you. Says good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast. Good morning to you as well. Big Al says it's a beautiful morning. It certainly is. We've got one of those 30-degree swing days coming in Atlanta, Nick. It was 45 this morning and will be 75 this afternoon. So gorgeous, gorgeous day.
Yeah, we had sun yesterday, which was nice. It's been pretty wet and rainy here, but you live with the wet and the rain in the wintertime here, so that way you have glorious green summertime.
Victor coming in says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Hope you guys enjoyed your weekend in the Combine as well. We did, and he's got, we'll hit up one of his questions first, because he probably noticed who I put on the cover this morning of the cover art for this show. Joe Cannon getting us cranked up, already come in with the like on Facebook as it's coming out. And Victor says, is it crazy to think about the possibility to draft Richardson at number 8 if available and go to an open competition between him and Ritter? Would that be a waste of a pick? Nick, what are your thoughts on that?
If you like Richardson, it's not a waste of a pick. His upside is tremendous. This is all hearsay, but it's because.
And Nick's internet decided to take a break while we're going to say that. So I'm going to kind of finish his thought on that. Okay, you're back. Go ahead, Nick. Maybe you're not back. Nick's got the extender on the way. Hopefully the internet will catch up on this one. Is it crazy to draft Richardson at number 8? No, it's not. I think Richardson has tested his way up into the top 5 consideration. If you like him, you've got Desmond Ritter. If Desmond Ritter is your fallback, okay, we draft Richardson at number 8 for upside. Let's see how this works. We know Desmond Ritter can do a job. So if the Atlanta Falcons draft number 8 and Desmond Ritter holds on to that job, that's not a bad thing. That means you should have good quarterback play. You're stacking them up until you got the right guy. If Ritter is the right guy and Anthony Richardson pushes him, you can find ways to use a 6'4", 245-pound 4.4 guy with a 40-inch vertical leap. You can find ways to use him in different packages and whatnot. The Philadelphia 3rd and 1, those were automatic first downs. I think it was them. No, or was it the Chiefs? Either way, those quarterback sneaks were automatic first downs. You can find ways to use Richardson. I think teams looking for a quarterback, and I don't know that the Falcons are or not, there's still some smoke around that, are pretty happy with what they saw from Anthony Richardson, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, crazy tester. Apparently, he did really well with the interviews at the combine where they put him up on the whiteboard. And he probably was number 2 in terms of the number 2 or 2B in terms of the throwing at the combine, but with the best tools. It sounds like, and from what I saw, CJ Stroud's throwing session was far and away number 1. Obviously, not the athlete, but
Stetson Bennett might have been number 1.
I don't know about that, but CJ Stroud, I was very impressed by. Bennett was fine. And then also Will Levis, I thought was you can just tell the arm looks different for that, the body type, and then Richardson right there. So yeah, Richardson at 8. If you love him, that'd be great. That'd take him. Ritter was a 3rd-round pick last season. He looks like he's competent, but you're not looking for competent at quarterback. You're looking for a franchise guy. Yep. The other thing is, and this is also circles back to the Falcons maybe trading up with where this team is at in terms of this Arthur Smith regime with the cap that they have this year. You're probably not picking top 10 next year. Also, the NFC South where it is. I mean, this is your chance. If you see a quarterback this cycle, it's unbelievably expensive to get into the top 10 to go get a quarterback. So this might be your chance.
That was my argument for taking Justin Fields at number 4 2 years ago was, if you don't have the guy and you're going to need him because Matt Ryan was 36 years old, it's really expensive to go and get him. They might have it in Ritter. And if they're not sure, there sure is a lot of noise about the Falcons looking at quarterbacks this offseason. Joe Cannon always looking at us. He says, great morning, Scott and Nick. What a weekend full of surprises. Yeah, we'll get into some of those too. We got about 30 minutes today to go, and then we'll be back for a full hour on Wednesday morning. Victor comes and he says, my 2 priorities at number 8 would be Christian Gonzalez, corner from Oregon. I put him on the cover of this one because I think, again, it seems like the guys or the moves we've really wanted since we've been doing this, Nick, for the Falcons have just been out of reach just a little bit. So, has Gonzalez played his way up above that number 8 pick? Possibly. Or Tyree Wilson? I don't think Tyree Wilson will be there at 8. Both of them have enormous upside. It will be a hell of a pick. I'll throw in 2 more names in there, Nick, since this is what we're on as far as guys that could be really interesting. Lucas Van Ness has absolutely played his way into top 10 consideration, tested his way in there and showed enough on the field with his versatility and the size and traits and tools and the things he can do. Paris Johnson, offensive lineman. Now, Paris Johnson or Peter Skoronski look to be the top 2 to go off the board more than likely. One of them is prototype. One of them is prototype guard looking with Skoronski. You talk about the testing and Paris Johnson, what he could bring. Paris Johnson was the other person I put on the cover of this show as someone who all of a sudden becomes really intriguing depending on what happens with Caleb McGarry.
Yeah, and Broderick Jones had a heck of a weekend as well. Came in taller than he measured at Georgia, which is weird. I think he came in like 6'5" and a half or 6'5", and he was listed at 6'4" at Georgia. I ran a sub 540, which 40 doesn't matter for big men. It doesn't correlate to the field. His 10-yard split was also awesome. And I thought he looked great in drills. One of those 3 offensive linemen, I think, would be in that 8 through 20 range. They'll all be off the board without a doubt. So we'll see what happens. As far as Christian Gonzalez, did he play himself out of the 8th overall? Possibly. I could see him going as high as 6. That's a team in Detroit that is desperate for some cornerback help. Jeff Okudah has not been great opposite him. They don't have anybody. So I could see him going as high as 6 overall. He's got 32-inch arm length, a lot of ball production at Oregon this last year, jumped really well, ran well with the size. So he's established himself firmly at cornerback 2 for me.
All right. We've talked corner, edge, offensive tackle, wide receiver. Is there a wide receiver out there? Because again, yes, you want to go the Falcons. I think most Falcons fans, we all pretty much agree here in Atlanta. This team needs defense, but if the right guy's not there, you don't want him to reach and miss at number 8. If you could get a sure thing, there's no such thing. If you could get another really good player at a different position, you've got to just keep stacking talent. You can use somebody basically at every position. The only one that's pretty much sealed up is like right guard. That's about it. You can use another corner. You can use another receiver. You can use another offensive tackle. Maybe you might not be set at quarterback. Running back, you could definitely use another running back. Anyway, wide receiver. If it's a wide receiver, would it be Quentin Johnson?
He's still tested, great athlete, whatever. He's pretty raw. Honestly, somebody compared him to Cordell Johnson the other day, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe. As far as some of the
To
movement
who?
skills, Cordell Patterson. Excuse
Okay,
me.
I'm like, wait a minute, Keyshawn, Cordell.
No. Cordell
Who am I
Patterson.
missing?
Excuse me. But the guy who stole the show for me this weekend at wide receiver was Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Mhm.
Had unbelievable agilities there. Didn't run the 40, probably for good reason. He's not the fastest in a straight line, but the body control and his work in the field drills was flawless. Flawless. He was unbelievably beautiful. I was listening to Dane Brugler talk about it, and he said that, like, even down on the field, it's so quiet at the combine. It's such a weird atmosphere
I know.
that the ball sounded different landing in Jackson Smith and Jigba's hands compared to everybody else. It was like a soft, throwing it into pillows versus some of these other guys where you see him like clapping the ball. Like Darnell Washington had a great combine, but still fighting the ball out there for some of those guys. So yeah, either of those guys, great. I think they're going to be no doubt first rounders in this class. I wouldn't take them in the top 8, top
Mhm.
12 personally. I don't see that guy in either of them, but they're good players, just not at 8.
Elkhorn might be the best of the measurements for overall athleticism. Jackson Smith and Jigba's was a 6'5'7". The next closest wide receiver was 0.3 of a second slower at 6'8'5". I mean, that's
Crazy. That's insane.
that's Usain Bolt running against everybody else, and kind of raising his hand and watching as he goes across the line. That's how different that is just. And you talk about, the Elkhorn is basically, it's kind of a weave almost. It's a change of directions at speed. So it's not a start-stop kind of like the shuttle is. When I think of a guy running a route, what of these drills is most like that? It's an Elkhorn. When you're coming in and out of breaks and you're not necessarily, unless you're, cranking down and stopping and coming back to the ball, but, quick change of direction on the fly is an Elkhorn. At 6'5", I mean, a 6'5" Elkhorn, that's insane. Could he be the type of guy that could help unlock this offense when you've got the Twin Towers and then you've got somebody that you put in between them with that type of athleticism? And could he be a trade down candidate? Would he be somebody if the Falcons said, hey, we want to move back a little bit. Let's move back to 15 and pick up another second rounder. Then do you take a look at maybe somebody like this as well?
Yeah, certainly. If you move down, I think that's a possibility.
All right. I'm big out. Here's want to say Jeremy came in, and I'm going to hit everybody here real quick. Jeremy says, good morning, everyone. And he's got a question we'll get to as well. And Jamal says, good morning, Nick and chat. Let's get this show started. Rise up. And he says, stay away from Anthony Richardson. I get this one. I do. 53% passer or so. I had a discussion with some of the guys the other night, when they were talking about Jalen Hurts, really coming on, wasn't really thought of. I'm like, Jalen Hurts was a 70% passer in college. Anthony Richardson is 53%. Now, we can fall in love with the traits. And the thing is it's not just a traits guy for me. This isn't, when you sent it to me, I kind of just sent response back with Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor was not a quarterback. He should have gone straight wide receiver. I had this argument way back in the day. He was like the number 1 overall player. He could get away with playing quarterback, much like Tim Tebow could in college, and be good at it, but he didn't have an NFL future. I think Anthony Richardson has an NFL arm as far as release and strength goes, if not necessarily the refinement and the accuracy yet. But when you watch him play and he's throwing 50%, it scares the bejesus out of you, Nick.
Yeah, it's also the 1.5 year starting down there. So still a guy who doesn't have that fit that Parcells number of starts mold that you're looking for. So yeah, if you're looking to play it safer for the quarterback position there are other options in this class. But again, for me, if it comes down to if you buy in the person between the ears and, in the chest cavity on top of the athleticism and the arm talent that he has, I would take a swing. I mean, it's always a lottery ticket at the quarterback position, but if you don't play the game, you're not going to hit, right? And you have to play the game at quarterback. You're not just going to luck your way into it unless you're, 6th-round Tom Brady, but you got to take a calculated risk at some point.
And it's one of those, it's like, God, the Falcons need defense across the board. They need a corner, they need a safety, they need defensive linemen, they need edge. Linebacker might be okay, but even that's up for grabs considering that Rashaan Evans was a free agent too. they need defense. But again, you're hopefully not drafting in the top 10 again. And you've got competency at least in Ritter. We're not sure if he's going to move on and be more from that. That's still a question mark. That if you can get a guy that you don't necessarily have to start right away with the physical upside in a running-based offense who runs the ball more than anybody, and Arthur Smith, you become real interested in what Anthony Richardson might be for the Falcons, honestly. Good morning, Billy. Appreciate you coming in. And Jeremy comes in. He says, Paris Johnson makes sense. We move on from McGarry. All right. Wanted to ask you this. I think I kind of interrupted myself. Paris Johnson, Peter Skoronski, Broderick Jones. If McGarry is no longer an Atlanta Falcon, which way are you going?
Paris Johnson's my number one. So I'm going with him without a doubt. I mean, he tested well, the 36 and an eighth or 36 and a quarter arm length as well. Inside outside versatility, played left guard there last year, left tackle this season, can flip over to right tackle in my opinion. So yeah, Paris Johnson's my number one. I think they're all really good though. So I'd be okay with him. I think Johnson is probably the best versatile tackle, where I think Skoronski is probably going to end up at center or guard. Broderick Jones a little bit more raw, probably is the best, most explosive athlete of the bunch. But I'm not sure about him flipping spots right now. Also, I think there's going to be a rougher transition for him than the other two.
Could be an option. And again, I think he's a good option at number 8. If there's several good options. If you decide you want to go offensive line, there's going to be several good options at 8. Big Al says, get another receiver in free agency. You're going to get a couple of receivers. I think you get one in the draft, and I think you get one in free agency. But the problem is right now, and there will be cap differences, cap changes and stuff. Right now, one of the top free agent receivers is Olamide Zaccheaus. And that's a guy that you're saying, okay, yeah, he's a nice 4, but we're looking for a 2. So the free agent class for wide receivers, which might elevate some of these guys in the draft, Al, into saying, okay, I need to get a receiver in this because I don't see anybody that's really going to help me in free agency. Michael asks, is which wide receiver is the best route runner in the 2023 NFL draft? Now, I don't know if he can run the routes as well, but he certainly has the physical ability. When you're talking about a 6'5" Elcone, and Smith and Jigba is got to be a guy who can get open like that with his change of direction.
Didn't have the best combine this week, but Jordan Addison's a pretty good route runner as well. And I know that sometimes, if somebody doesn't test as well, we all kind of panic and overreact to some things, but he's still, a top 50 pick and a damn good route runner that should be a good wide receiver too, with some mostly slot, but inside outside ability. But Jackson Smith and Jigba probably number 1.
I saw Addison, I think he got mentioned at one point, at number 8, and I watched. And I think my reaction was, I think I told you when I watched Jordan Addison was, wow, I really like that quarterback. That was my reaction watching Addison, was like, he's okay.
Yeah.
Would I like him? Yeah, maybe in the 2nd or 3rd.
Yep.
Definitely not high 1st. If he gets into the 1st, I think that's more of a indication of wide receiver on the whole and this class, as opposed to where would Addison have been in the class of receivers last year, which was pretty deep. Mm-hmm. Relatively low. I mean, maybe double digits, Nick, when you start adding in guys like, Alec Pierce, Christian Watson, guys like that. Jordan Addison probably would have come in 7th, 8th, 9th at best in that receiver class last year.
Yeah, probably about there. Really interesting. Josh Downs, another one I think worth shouting out there from UNC. Interesting player, good body type for that. And Zay Flowers, I think, also had a pretty good week, and another one that could be in that conversation.
And then, one of the guys to watch as a developmental guy is Andre Iosivas. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Yes.
He struggled a little bit against the top level of competition down in Mobile. That's okay. He's playing at Princeton. He hasn't gone against the level of corner that he would see. Physically speaking, he's as good as anybody in this draft at the wide receiver position. He can learn and do some of those things. His lack of refinement right now will make him available later on. I'd keep an eye on him. He's a guy with the physical traits I think he's a decathlete, an Ivy League decathlete, and almost at the level of Olympic level. He came in at 6'3", 205, 4'4", 40, 39-inch vertical, 10.8 broad jump, 6'8", on the L cone, and a 4.12 shuttle with 20 reps on 225. He's a beast. He's just a little bit, like I said, he's just not quite there yet, which is okay. Doesn't have to be. We got about 10 minutes left in the show, Nick. I want to talk about Lamar Jackson a little bit. You sent me the tweet, I think it was from Ian Rappaport, saying that they might use a transition or a non-exclusive tag. And I've got all these, a non-exclusive tag, which would mean they would have the right to match an offer. And if they didn't, it would cost 2 first-round draft picks to get him. 2 first-round draft picks, number 8 and next year's for Lamar Jackson. That sounds like a pretty good deal, Nick. That sounds better than the 3 first-rounders and maybe extras down the line. If they put and they would give them the right to match still, but if they put that non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson, if the Ravens do that, the Falcons should be really, really interested. And I know Ian Rappaport at least is saying they are.
Yeah, and also Ben Albright keeps saying Falcons for the Lamar Jackson trade rumors as well. So we'll see. It does make me a little nervous about the fact that the Ravens can match it. What does that look like? What does the contract have to look like for you to make sure that they don't match it? Mm-hmm. But it sounds like there's a lot of smoke with the Lamar Jackson move. Also, we heard some rumors from Ian Rappaport that the Falcons had at least called the Bears about potentially moving up to number 1. So we can talk about the defense and the need for wide receiver and everything all we want. But this is a Falcons team that seems like they believe they're in a position that they at least have to make some swings at the quarterback position, just based on these rumors and what we're hearing about their actions right now.
Yeah, doing the due diligence at the very least. That's part of your job. I talk about, as a general manager, my job is to replace you, basically. I have to have a list. I have to figure out ways that I can get better at every position. And it's your job to make sure that you're basically outplaying what I am paying you. So you're more valuable than what I'm paying you. So I can't replace you. You become irreplaceable. So going out there and, is Desmond Ridder shown enough? And this is something we talked about last year, Nick, was they may already have a pretty good idea whether they think Desmond Ridder can be the guy or not. We don't know that. I liked what I saw for sure, ready to see more. But would I be willing to stake my job? Because it's different now. This is going to be a new year. The Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith did a good job surviving cap hell. But now expectations are going to be different. Now they're going to be, okay, you got through this. You've got 2 drafts under you. This will be your 3rd draft, and you've got some free agency money to come in and move forward. You're 7-10 2 years in a row. I want to see 9-8. I want to see at least a 500, and we're knocking on the door of a playoff berth. Do you trust Desmond Ridder to be that guy? We don't know yet.
Yep. And if you use him as a bridge to kick the can until next season, where are you at as far as the ability to go get it? What does the quarterback class look like next year? This year, it's kind of the top 4, and then it falls off a cliff. After that, though, I mean, who knows? It's hard to predict. We know we have 2 top dogs next season in Mays and obviously the guy from USC, Caleb Williams. But after that, I mean, question marks.
Yep. So we'll see. Jason Heller comes in on Facebook. He says, good morning. Good morning to you. He says, after watching the combine, I'm good with trading down in the 1st, not out of, and taking Tulip, the defensive end from USC. I don't know too much about him, Nick. What do you think?
Tuli Lopu, probably butchered his name, but USC stand-up edge, 290 pounds. He came in, didn't do any of the testing at the combine, but came in at 266 and did the field goals. Looked good there. I don't think he's a first-rounder by any means, especially in this class where you got a lot of options at edge. But I can't believe we didn't even talk that much about edge and defensive line, because I think they were probably the best in show, maybe outside of tight ends this week in the combine. But I think Tuli's probably more of a early 3rd round to mid 3rd round guy, in my opinion. Pretty productive at USC, but with his body type, it really didn't make sense where he's going to play at 266 now and then not testing. I mean, probably I wouldn't take him in the 1st round. I think guys are talking about trading down in the 1st round. Edge rushers. I'm not sure what's going to happen. We didn't even talk about Adi, who had just an absolute unbelievable freak, probably the the best combine of anybody this year. Then you have also, guys like Nolan Smith, who did absolutely incredible, really small, but also did incredible. So maybe those are some guys you want to keep an eye on in that potential trade down if you're still looking at edge.
Yeah, I have a hard time picturing them trading down right now. If it is one, it means a couple things. One, it means they're not sold on the quarterback that falls to 8, and someone else is, because that's really the main reason you would trade down. Is someone comes up and gives you a good enough package that depending on how far you want to go. Now, if you want to go, swap places with the Panthers, okay, I'm interested. But how far do you want to go down when you could use an impact player on defense? That's what the Falcons really need. And if they don't want the quarterback, which we've talked about, we've hit on that one pretty good. I want Christian Gonzalez, a running mate with AJ Terrell, or a fire-breathing edge rusher. Pass rush. Could Jalen Carter fall to 8? As far as putting him right in the middle, I don't think so. I don't think this is really going to affect his stock, where I think he still goes in the top. I think he's still one of the top 2 position players taken, Nick. They're misdemeanor charges. I think he got away I don't know if he got away lucky, but considering everything that happened and he's being charged, manslaughter wouldn't be out of the question in something like that. So I don't think he's going to be, it's really going to be affecting his draft stock. So edge, corner, I think are still where I want to go, and I think you'll have good options there. Could Joey Porter, if Gonzalez goes ahead, could Joey Porter be a guy at 8?
I would take Devin Witherspoon before Joey Porter personally, but if you're looking for a really press heavy, then probably Joey Porter is the guy. But he's up there. I think Gonzalez, Weatherspoon, Porter, and then Banks is going to be my order for the top cornerbacks in this class. And Banks came in a little bit smaller than we thought, but tested really well and looked great in the field drills.
Frank's asking about Tank Dell. I think Tank Dell is a really interesting wide receiver for what the Falcons need. Again, you've got size. I'm biased. I like those big wide receivers. Well, you've got a couple of them already. You got Drake. You got Kyle Pitts. So let's get somebody underneath them, that brings a different skill set to the table. And Tank could be one of those guys. Tank came in at his first split was 3rd best out of the wide receivers with a 10-yard split of 149. He is cat quick. He's super small. He's 5'8", 165 pounds. Plenty of quickness and athleticism there, though, that he would be very interested. I'd be very interested in him, but not in the first round. Maybe not even in the second round.
Yeah.
But if you said I got Tank in the 3rd, I'd probably be pretty happy.
Yeah, ran a 4.5 40, which is good, but not amazing for the body type that he has and the type of wide receiver that he is. Somebody like maybe even a Marvin Mims would interest me more than Tank Dell right now, based on the testing and the production at a bigger school. But Tank Dell, interesting player, 3rd, 4th round, I'd be in, but just extremely small.
And we've got a question here about centers. I'm going to bring up some of the centers here. Let me see. Well, I think it was Michael coming on Facebook. Good morning, Michael. He says, good morning, guys. I think we need a center. Any good ones that will actually hit free agency? I like Dahlman and Hennessy, at least where they finished. As far as Hennessy being a backup level guy, I'm okay with that. He can play a little guard. I'm okay with him being backup. Last 3 games of the season, Dahlman took a step forward. I thought he played pretty well. Now, do I want to bring in competition for him? Yes. Do I want to use premium resources to try and bring in competition? Probably not. Could I find somebody in the middle rounds that could come in and compete at center and guard? Probably. But as far as centers go, about Connor McGovern. He came in, but he's going to be too expensive more than likely, Nick. He was on a $9 million salary last year. Bradley Bozeman from Carolina was on 2.8 last year. Ethan Posick from Cleveland was on 1.2. So there's some guys to be had out there, and I would absolutely bring in a next tier of free agent, or at least a middle round draft pick as an interior line as well.
Somebody who's versatile, who can play guard and center, that can be relatively inexpensive and provide coverage in case injuries happen. I think that's what you're looking for there. Maybe sign a vetman, Graham Glasgow, from Denver. If he's your 8th offensive lineman, you can.
I'd rather have Hennessy there. Hennessy can play guard, and I'd rather have the combination of Dahlman and Hennessy than wasting. Sorry to say wasting, but to have a roster spot on Graham Glasgow.
Yeah,
just doesn't move. He's too immobile.
Old, knee injuries have zapped him a bit.
Yeah. So on that note, guys, we're going to get out of here. Want to just kind of wrap up by saying very interesting options at number 8. And we went through 5 or 6 positions that it could be with multiple options there. So the death of this class was a little bit premature. I think there's going to be some very good players to have. Edge corner would be my top 2 priorities for the Atlanta Falcons if they stayed at 8 and they're happy with Desmond Ridder and they're bringing back Caleb McGarry. If Caleb McGarry goes somewhere, and I don't think he will, we'll see, but I don't think he will. I think at the very worst, he's going to get a franchise tag. Then I don't see a reason to take another offensive lineman that high. I think they'll probably roll with Ridder. Go get defense. Lamar Jackson, if he gets that non-exclusive tag, you're going to be interested in him. The thing is, so will other teams, because 2 first-round picks is not that big a deal. That's not bad for Lamar Jackson. That'd be a good deal. If you've got the money to make the contract happen, the Falcons have some money, and you can work the contract so that the initial cap hits aren't awful, and the cap hits the salary cap should increase through the years of his contract. And finally, there's still smoke around the Falcons trading up to number 1, talking with the Bears and moving up. So maybe they're not sold on that quarterback spot. On that note, Nick and I are going to swing on over to Mile High Huddle and talk some Broncos this morning. We will be back Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock, to talk draft, to talk all kinds of rumors, free agency, et cetera, and saying good morning to John, our friend, Degeneration X. Thank you, sir. Closing us out with a super. So if you don't follow us over to Mile High Huddle, we'll see some of you there. We'll see you back here Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. Thanks for being here, everybody.